my best to expose this man for what he is. And what he is, in bold letters, is a white supremacist. And why any African American person would want to support a white supremacist, I don't know. You all please share this. Please share. And even do a watch party. This information needs to get out to as many African Americans as possible. Otherwise, we could end up with 4 more years of Donald Trump. If we can get black folks out to vote and to vote in opposition to Trump, we may be able to make him a one-term president. 4 more years of this man would be, based on all the stuff I have right here to share with you about his white supremacist views, could be very, very damaging for black Americans. I intend to expose him. Please share. Please share this. I'm just waiting. I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me okay, if it sounds good, please let me know. Otherwise, I got something else that I can do. If you can hear me. First thing I'm going to do tonight is we're going to take a brief look at Mr. Trump's past since the 70s. And you'll see that he is a white supremacist, just like I'm telling you. And then we're going to look at his policies, his current policies across his administration. Okay? We're going to look at his current policies across administrations, because that's what we need to look at. We need to forget what he says in these speeches and all the stunts that he pulled the other night with the Tuskegee decorated hero and the young girl who got a scholarship. Those are good things, but they're cover-ups for his policies. You got to focus on the policies and the record. You look at the record and you look at the policies, and you'll see who this man is. The Super Bowl commercial that he did, where he had the young lady, whether he got the woman out of federal prison, and she did a commercial for him at the beginning of the Super Bowl. Of course she's happy to be out of prison, and of course she's appreciative to Mr. Trump. But when you understand his criminal justice policies, that I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight, you'll see he's no friend of the black community. Okay? So please share this. And I'm going to get started. All right. So let's first, but I need to know that you're hearing me. I don't want to go any further if the audio is not good. Let me know if you're hearing me. Somebody let me know. Very good. Thank you. All right, so let's begin. Now, keep in mind, there are two categories that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Mr. Trump's past, and then we're going to talk about his current policies. His racist past and his racist policies. That will reveal and expose who Mr. Trump really is. All the reality TV stuff that he does, entertaining people and all of that. Don't pay attention to that. The man is a master at that stuff. I mean, he's been doing it for a number of years. You got to go behind all of that and look at the record and look at the policies. Okay? Look at his past and look at his current policies. Now, let's talk a little bit about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with his racist past, but I do want to start out there. So the first thing that we see that is a big eye-opener with Mr. Trump is that in 1973, the Department of Justice under the Nixon administration sued Mr. Trump because he was discriminating against people of color, him and his dad, in that they would not rent apartments to African Americans specifically. And they settled that lawsuit. So that's the first thing. There's a record here. There's a record where the government actually sued him for discrimination in his father. All right. Then Mr. Trump in the 80s allegedly would cause all of the African American employees at what's called the Trump's Castle. The managers would put all the black people in the back because they knew that Trump didn't like seeing a lot of blacks as employees. Okay? So they knew what to do when Mr. Trump would come and visit this facility. They'd get rid of the black folks. Okay? In 1989, everybody's heard about this, but it bears repeating. 4 young African Americans and 1 Hispanic teenager were arrested, not just accused, but arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned for raping a white woman. Turns out the whole thing was false. However, Mr. Trump took out a local ad where he said, bring back the death penalty, bring back our police. And essentially, he encouraged the execution of these young men. 4 African American, 1 Hispanic. He took out a full-page ad encouraging the death penalty. And we know he's never, even after these men were exonerated, they were literally exonerated, found out that they were beaten into confessions. Yet Trump has not apologized yet. He has not acknowledged even to this day that he was completely wrong about that. What else has he done? Mr. Trump said in a book written by a man by the name of John O'Donnell, quote, "Black guys counting my money, I hate it." So he had a black accountant, and he singled out this black accountant for being black, and essentially said he hated this black guy counting his money. Now we're looking at the man's record. Okay? His record speaks for himself, speaks for itself. All right, 1992, the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino. Trump had to pay a $200,000 fine because the hotel transferred black and women dealers off tables to accommodate big-time gamblers' prejudices. So big-time gamblers would come in and say, "Hey, look, we don't want our dealers to be black or women." And Trump would have them move. That his casino would have them move, and he had to pay a $200,000 fine for that. Okay. All right, let's keep working here. In 2005, Trump wanted to do an apprentice season where he had the white and the black contestants going at each other. He thought that was a good idea. Let's keep moving. So much that this man has done. In 2011, you know that he pushed this whole birther spectacle, basically saying that President Obama was born in a foreign country, is not American, and that therefore he shouldn't have been elected president. Okay, and he did that for many years, 5 or 6 years, basically delegitimizing the first black president. Okay, just completely delegitimizing him, accusing him of not being born in the U.S. He also said that Obama should release his school records, his transcripts, because he claimed that Obama was a terrible student, an affirmative action student, that he did poorly at Columbia and Harvard. Okay? We know the man started his presidential campaign coming down the escalators at one of his hotels where he called Mexicans rapists and murderers and said, he thought maybe some of them might have been good people. That's the way he actually got started. Called a Mexican judge, said that he was unable of being fair and impartial because he was Mexican. Said that about a federal judge. Okay, let's keep working it. We also know that during the Charlottesville debacle, the Nazis, the KKK, the white supremacists came to Charleston, Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, where a young woman was killed who was protesting against that white supremacy and against the Nazis. And he called the Nazis some very fine people. Nazis. Ticket torch carrying Nazis, okay, who have pledged allegiance to Hitler. I mean, actually Nazis and KKK. I remember David Duke, the KKK leader from Louisiana, was at this march bragging about Trump and how Trump, was in their corner. This man is a white supremacist. Okay. Okay, let's keep working this. So we know that he called African countries blank hole countries. Okay, that's his take on all the African countries and all the African people. Okay. He attacked NFL players because they were kneeling in protest of racial discrimination. And we know what he called them. He called them SOBs. Okay. All right. I mean, I could go on and on with his record. This is the man's record. Okay. And So that's his record. Let's talk about his policies. That's where I want to get. I want to get to his policies because they really show how much of a white supremacist this man is. All right, I'm going to start with, and the way I'm going to do this is, the way we're going to talk about his policies is we're going to look at agencies in his administration, okay? And we're going to see one or two racist policies in just about all of his administration, all the agencies in his administration, and how these policies negatively impact African Americans. Okay? Let's start with the Department of Treasury. Okay? So first of all, Trump loves to talk about all of the jobs that he has created and how low the unemployment rate is for African Americans. And let me say this first and foremost. African Americans are still twice, the unemployment rate for black Americans is still twice that of white Americans. Trump never says that. Also, he doesn't say, and unemployment is at a record low right now. I will definitely go on the record as saying that. But what Trump doesn't tell you is that most of that occurred under the previous administration, under the Obama administration. He doesn't like to admit that. It hurts his little bitty heart to admit that Obama did such a great job as president. I had issues with President Obama, by the way, but his record is undeniable when it comes to economics and some other things. For example, let's take, since Trump has been in office since 2017, 2018, 2019, what it looks to be here, about 4.4 plus 1.7, that's like 6 million or so jobs that have been created under his 3 years in office. Now, for the same time for Obama, 2014, 2015, 2016, there are about 8 million jobs, 7 to 8 million jobs. Okay? So Obama has created over 1 million, under the last 3 years of the Obama administration, he has created over 1 million more jobs than Trump has created in his 3 years in office. He doesn't say that. He hates that. Okay? He hates Obama. Okay? He hates the Obama administration. So he leaves out a lot of stuff. Okay? He doesn't tell you that most of the jobs that have been created over the last 11, 12 years have been the result of the Obama administration. And if you remember the Obama administration, when Obama came into office, the country was just about to tilt over in bankruptcy, if you remember. And I think the country was losing 1 million jobs per month when Obama took over. And he got some things in place. He did the bailout. He saved the big 3 car companies. They all survived and paid back the money that the government loaned them. And the country started creating jobs again. And the unemployment rate under Obama started going down, 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 until Trump was elected in 2016, took office in 2017, and the the trajectory of the unemployment rate was going way down. So when he came into office, the unemployment rate was much better because of what Obama had previously done. He doesn't say that. He doesn't want that. Doesn't want people to know that. Okay, so he doesn't talk about that. Not only does he not talk about it, but his administration and a lot of the conservatives and Republicans, they don't want to talk about that. The economists who are connected with him, they don't want to talk about that. And if you remember when he came in office, he talked about Trump, that is, he talked about creating growth of 6%, 5, 6, 7%. He boasted. Well, guess what? The growth of our economy is about the same place as it was under Obama. Okay? He doesn't talk about that. All right? So back to black unemployment. When he talks about how he has done so much to put black people back to work and nobody's been as many black folk haven't been to work since 1776. Okay, this is a very narcissistic man. So he talks in these big tones, these big words, no one has done anything as great as he. But it's all untrue when you take into account the fact that black unemployment, had gone way down under the Obama administration. Okay, he doesn't want to tell you that. All right. Yes, so Trump has created 1.5 million fewer jobs than Obama during the same period. Let's talk about something else that is huge, that is really, really important. Okay? In fact, this is the graph I wanted you to see. I don't know if you can, it may be turned backwards. I don't know. But right here is where unemployment was when Obama took office. And you see how it goes down? Okay? And when Trump came in office, it was about here. Okay, it was here, going downhill, and it's still going downhill, but it was Obama who turned it around, not Trump. Okay? Now, how many of you remember a couple of years ago this big tax cut? Okay? This big tax cut. Let's tell the truth about this tax cut. The tax cut, most economists, or a lot of them, basically say it was just a big windfall for rich people. Okay? It was Trump giving his rich buddies a bunch of money. A lot of these companies who got these tax cuts, I remember when they first got them, some of them said they didn't even need the money. Okay? And they started just giving the money to their employees. Okay? The problem with the tax cut is the fact that it is projected to create $1 to $2 trillion in debt over the next 10 years. $1 to $2 trillion in debt over the next 10 years. Now, when that debt needs to be paid, who do you think, in other words, if our country is walking around with $22-23 trillion in debt, 2 of it will come from Trump's policies, okay, from his tax cut. If our country's dealing with $22 trillion, and this is just the man's first term, my God, if you get another one, he could take us in $4 or $5 trillion in debt, or add to the debt and to the debt. But here's my point: when that debt has to be paid, and when the creditors come calling, and all that debt has to be serviced, it's going to impact, you know who? The people who are already on the margins of the economy. And a lot of those people are African Americans. Okay? White people have cushion because a lot of them have wealth. The average black person doesn't have wealth. And it's predicted that we'll have no wealth in 30, 40 years. So when all this debt that he's building, when it's time to pay up, it's going to affect the people who are already struggling, mostly. And a lot of those people are African American. And you know who they, be even more specific? A lot of them are African American women. Because a lot of our families, unfortunately, a lot of black families, unfortunately, are headed by single mothers. And I say unfortunate because where are the fathers who are contributing? So the ones who will be, who will suffer the most will be black women who are out doing a tremendous job, bringing in the bacon, cooking the bacon, feeding the bacon, doing it all. Okay? So this tax cut, it's awful. Let me explain something else to you about this tax cut. That money has to be paid back. And we don't have the money to pay that money back. So every year when Congress does our budget, there is a shortfall. There's not enough money to service that debt. That's called a deficit. And that too adds more money onto the debt. Okay? So for Trump, for his tax cut, and I want you to understand, I really want you to understand this. He gave his rich buddies this big tax cut, and then he wants to take from everybody else to pay for it. Take from the people who have the least to give money to the richest. And you tell me if that makes any sense. Tell me if that's moral. Tell me if that is someone we need to give 4 more years to. Take all that money in tax cuts and give it to his billionaire friends. Okay? And then try to pay for that tax cut on the backs of poor people. By cutting Medicaid, by cutting Medicare, by cutting Social Security, all of that. Okay? So that his rich buddies can have even more riches. And again, who are on the margins of the economy? Largely African Americans. Don't you believe this stuff this man is telling us to get our votes? His policies are not good for us. Okay? There's this one report here that says this lady who is the policy director at Make It Work, Julie Cashin, she says the GOP did a tax bill that is a $1 trillion gift to the wealthiest Americans at the expense of working families. Another guy, director of the Project on Opportunity and Tax at the Institute for Policy Studies, he said that if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. It is an enormous gift to the ultra wealthy and pretty exclusively benefits the ultra wealthy. Talking about his tax cut. Okay? Congresswoman Yvette Clarke of New York, she said, the GOP tax cut is nothing more than a massive transfer of wealth to the richest Americans at the expense of working families and underserved communities. The bill cuts taxes for major corporations who already pay far less than their fair share and reflects Republican values. Billionaires first, everybody else second. And she talked specifically about a program that's called the New Markets Tax Credit and how the tax cut eliminates funding from that program. And she says that program over the years has pumped billions of dollars into African American communities, money that was matched by the private sector, and it created good paying jobs and spurred economic development. Massive spending cuts coupled with the repeal of economic development incentive programs like the NMTC will devastate African American communities for generations to come. So you don't have to take it from me. Here it is right here. This program that was created to spur economic growth and development in African American communities has been cut to pay for Trump's tax cut for the rich. Okay? So before you think about pulling the lever for Trump, I'm just giving you some information so that you'll see that his policies, not the stuff he be saying on TV, but his policies, that's what you got to pay attention to. Okay? All right, let's keep working. Probably need to move on a little bit because I got some other areas to get into. Here's an article I found by a man who his name is Stephen Gilchrist. He's the chairman of the South Carolina African American Chamber of Commerce. He's a Trump supporter, but he is on record as pointing out that Trump's trade wars, okay, we know he's been at war with China and he's trying to stir up a war with Europe now. And so I asked the question to myself, how are those trade wars affecting African Americans? Okay, because once again, keep in mind, a lot of African Americans are already on the margins of the economy. And so you start messing with the economy, you tend to hurt them most. Especially black women, we said, because they're the heads of household in a lot of black families. This brother said, he's talking about a plant in Allendale County, one of the poorest counties in South Carolina, and one with a population that is nearly 75% African American. He said that plant recently laid off workers because the trade war has made it too expensive to manufacture products or compete abroad. And he said, and while it is true that opportunity zones, now you remember Trump mentioned opportunity zones just during his State of the Union speech Tuesday. And he had this black guy to stand up who had benefited from the opportunity, from an opportunity zone by starting a business. I think he had been incarcerated, couldn't get a job, and he started a successful business. Bravo to him, right? All right. Pursuant to these trade wars, however, while it is true, this brother goes on to say, quote, while it is true that opportunity zones have the potential to help grow the economies of undeserved African American communities, their impact might be weakened if tariffs, which are taxes, keep forcing residents in those communities to pay more for necessities like groceries and clothes. And once again, Stephen Gilchrist, who wrote this article, or who contributed to the article, no, I think he actually wrote it. He's a Trump supporter. So even he is acknowledging that these trade wars can have a disproportionate impact on poor black people. So I want you to think about that before you go into the booth 10 months or so from now and pull the lever for this man. Okay? I have another report here. Ingrid Saunders Jones, who is the national chair for the National Council of Negro Women. She said, there's no evidence that African Americans will shoulder a heavier burden than other segments of the population due to the trade wars. But that's not the point, she says. Listen to this. She says, any economic instability affects black women particularly hard. especially given sluggish wage growth of just 2.7% in the last quarter. Now that is 2.7% under Trump's administration. And remember, I told you he promised 6%. He talked about Obama like a dog, because a lot of times under Obama's administration, the GDP was about 2.7%. And so now he's at 2.7%, and that's kind of where it has averaged. But back to this point, any economic stability affects black women particularly hard, especially given sluggish wage growth of just 2.7% in the last quarter, which is largely canceled out by 2% inflation. The economic recovery from the Great Recession has been uneven, and it is particularly fragile among African Americans. So she's letting us know that the trade war will and has, and it is impacting black women particularly hard for the reasons that I've also given you. Now, these are all Trump policies that I'm talking about. Okay? He's the one that got these wars, these trade wars started, and he's now getting ready to get one going with Europe. Okay? And again, because African Americans tend to be on the margins and fringe sectors of the economy, African Americans stand to lose the most. Okay? I want to get to some other stuff. The Department of Education. Some Trump policies in the Department of Education that have a profound impact on the black community. All right? Now, why am I going through this? Because Trump is coming for black votes really hard. And he's doing things. You saw at the State of the Union speech that he gave. I mean, he paraded 5 or 6, half a dozen black folks and gave them all some candy, some kind of candy. Well, why is he doing that? It ain't because he loved black folk. We all we got to do is look at the record. I just went over his record. So it's not because he loved black folk. He want black votes. He need a certain percentage of black votes to get reelected so that he can continue implementing his white supremacy agenda. Trump is interested in white folks. I'm just being honest with you. When they say, let's make America great again, they got to be talking about America during the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, when white folk had the black community basically oppressed, boots on their necks, basically, on our necks. That's all he can be. He's talking about Jim Crow. Okay? That's what he's talking about. And so they love him because he unashamedly, unabashedly, unapologetically are implementing policies across his administration to do just that, to put us back in our place and to keep us in our place. Now, why? Where's that coming from? Well, it's coming from the fact that a lot of these folks in his administration and a lot of these white conservatives and Republicans are descendants of white supremacists and racists. Okay, I mean, I'm just telling you that's why he's so popular in the South. Okay, that's where he loves to go, down south, because he knows that he's going to be met there with a whole lot of love. Okay, because they love to see him, putting black folk back in their place. Now, they won't say that. They won't say that. No, they won't say that. No. You know what they'll say? They'll say it's about abortions. They'll say it's about traditional marriage. They'll say it's about religious freedom. That's what they'll say. But that's all smoke. Okay, that's all smoke to hide what's behind the smoke. Okay? I wish I could get into that, and I will be. I'm going to be talking about that a little more. But this man is in place. They love him because He's a street fighter. He's a thug. It doesn't matter if he's at the prayer breakfast or State of the Union address. He's going to go thug. Okay? And they love it because they feel like he's fighting for us. And why is that so? Why is that so important to them? It's important because of a man named Barack Obama. Barack Obama scared. I said scared. Barack Obama, yeah, he scared him real bad when he got elected. Okay, he scared him very bad. And not only did he get elected, but he got reelected. So what did that say to a lot of whites? It said that they're losing their country. And they need a fighter to go out here and get it back. And that's who Trump is. Okay? That's who he is. And if we don't be real careful, he's going to win re-election. Because unfortunately, that's why I'm taking time out of my time right now to sit down and talk about this, because there are a whole lot of blacks who, not a lot, but there are a percentage. I think about 88% of black women didn't vote for Trump last time. They primarily voted for Hillary. But a good percentage of black men did vote for Trump this last time. Okay, I don't know if that was sexism, just not wanting to vote for for a woman, or what. But a lot of them didn't, and so he's targeting them. He's coming at the black vote, especially the black male vote. Okay, that's why he talks so much about jobs. You remember he told us, what you got to lose? Your schools are no good. Your communities are no good. Your streets are no good. You're getting shot down in the streets. You remember he said that to us, and very offensive what he said. Okay, so now he comes back and says, "Well, look what has happened under my administration. I got you working again." Okay, and that's what he's targeting to black Americans, especially the black men. Department of Education. There's one policy especially that I really want to highlight. This is dear to my heart because I wrote a book on education. The name of my book is How Public Schools Fail African American Males. Okay? And this is a subject that's dear to my heart. I used to be a public school teacher in high school. Okay? And I remember how the system would eat up our young boys. Okay? And so he put this person in place over the Department of Education, a woman by the name of Betsy DeVos. Now, before Trump got elected, Obama had put in place some policies to address some of the things I wrote about in my book, namely school discipline. The fact that African American males are disproportionately disciplined in school, disproportionately suspended and expelled. And that's not because African American males misbehave disproportionately. Okay? Get my book, you'll see it. I lay it out, study upon study upon study. It's not because our young men go to school and misbehave more. No, it's because of racism and biases toward our kids. So Obama put in place some policies to address that discrimination before he left office. Betsy DeVos, Trump's appointee, got rid of those policies. Okay? So this is the man some of you all are considering voting for. The same man who's putting in policies to hurt your community, even your children. Okay? So, don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Do the research. It's real simple. She turned back those policies. Let me just read this. DeVos rescinded guidance from the previous administration aimed at stemming the school to prison pipeline by prodding schools to reduce the number of suspensions and expulsions, especially for students of color who receive disciplinary actions at disproportionately high rates. So she got rid of those guidelines that previous administration, meaning the Obama administration, had put in place. And among other things, the guidelines led to an uptick in school districts embracing what's known as restorative justice, discipline strategies in which schools use methods other than suspension and expulsion. Because that's what they do with our kids. If our kids do the slightest thing, wear a hat backwards, sagging pants, zero tolerance, they're out. They're kicked out. Okay? And you kick a young man out of school and he's now hanging in the streets, you might as well go ahead and just put him in prison. Okay? We cannot vote for a man who champions such policies. We can't do it. All right? Let's keep working. Where I want to go next? Yeah, let's talk about federal court system. Yeah, criminal justice. I know a little bit about that. As a criminal lawyer, as a criminal defense attorney, know a little bit about the criminal justice system and how unfair it is. This letter right here. This is a letter, a memorandum from former Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Now, here's what Jeff Sessions instructed the Department of Justice to do. Quote, first, it is a core principle that prosecutors should charge and pursue the most serious, readily provable offense. First, it is a core principle that prosecutors should charge and pursue the most serious, readily provable offense. What is he saying? He was instructing federal prosecutors to, if you got a choice, if you got a person before you who's allegedly broken the law, you charge him with the most serious offense. Forget all that Eric Holder stuff about trying to help him out and keep him out of prison and reduce mass incarceration. Forget all that. You charge them with the most serious offense. Okay? At a time when we already have over 2 million people in prison, and half of them, more than half of them, are black. When blacks only make up about 12% of the population. That's what Jeff Sessions did under the Trump administration. You remember Trump talked a whole lot when he was campaigning about law and order? This is a result of that. Okay? And this goes on to say this policy fully utilizes the tools Congress has given us. By definition, the most serious offenses are those that carry the most substantial guideline sentencing, including mandatory minimal sentences. Now, you remember the lady during Super Bowl, black woman, I think her name is Johnson, who was in the commercial thanking Trump for getting her out of prison? So while he helped her get out of prison, he has in place policies to put a whole lot more back in. That's what we don't see. That's why you got to look at the policies. You can't look at this stuff that he's putting on TV. Remember, this man is a reality star. He what was it, The Apprentice, I believe it is? He did that 5 or 6 years. I mean, it was a rating gold mine for NBC. He knows how to put on a stunt. That's what he did at the State of the Union address. I mean, he had Rush Limbaugh. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That, to me, was so twisted. To have that Tuskegee hero present, standing, and clapping as Trump's wife put that thing around Rush Limbaugh's neck. That was twisted because we know how racist Rush Limbaugh is and has been. He is a pure white supremacist, and I would say he's the greatest purveyor of hate via media of anybody we've seen in the last 25 years. A lot of these racist conservatives, that's where they get all their information from, Rush Limbaugh. He's the one who's constantly pumping them up with racism and white supremacy. All kinds of offensive stuff. Okay? Oh, wow. That was crazy. So while he got Miss Johnson thanking him for getting him out of prison, he has policies in place to put a whole lot more black folk in prison over nonviolent drug offenses in many cases. Okay? In other words, these young men, a lot of them who are selling drugs, a lot of them have had no opportunity in life. Okay? Their families have been messed up. Their communities are messed up. Their schools are messed up. They don't see a way out other than doing what they see everybody else doing in some of these communities, selling drugs. Okay? And here, instead of taking that in consideration, you know, that's what Chloe and I try to do when we're representing these young men. We make the prosecutors understand what this young man has faced. We make them understand. You're gonna hear me about this young man. I was talking to a prosecutor the other day, and we were going back and forth, and he, you just keep coming at me and coming at. That's my job. What do you think I'm supposed to do? You just want to railroad these young men, and unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues let them do it. I'm not. I'm a fight for these young men, again, who grew up in broken families, broken communities, broken schools. They never had a chance. No wonder they turned to trying to sell drugs they got to pay bills just like the rest of us. Okay? So you ought not do what Jeff Sessions here, charge him with the most serious offense. And that brings about the most substantial sentences, even mandatory minimum sentences. That's Trump's policy. So before you pull the lever for Trump, I just want you to understand what you're voting for. Okay? Just want you to understand what you're voting for. While we're talking about the Department of Justice, let's also talk about voting. Okay? Let's talk about voting for a minute. Why do white conservatives, including evangelicals, how do they keep winning elections? Because of voter suppression and racial gerrymandering. Voter suppression and racial gerrymandering. Now, you might remember something called the Voting Rights Act that mandated that southern states get pre-clearance, get approval from the Justice Department before they would change their voting laws. That was put in place because they were notorious for trying to block black folks from voting. They would have black folks, when they come up to vote, they'd put a jar of jelly beans on the table and say, okay, you can vote if you can tell me how many jelly beans in that bar. Or tell me how many bubbles in a bar of soap. then we'll let you vote. Or just kill a bunch of folks when they try. They notoriously tried to keep us disenfranchised, tried to keep us from voting. So in the 60s, the Voting Rights Act was enacted to address all of that foolishness. But guess what happened? A case called Shelby County versus Holder went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it gutted the Voting Rights Act. And so now these states are coming now, a lot of these southern states especially, they're coming now and with all these laws to keep us from voting, these voter ID laws, okay? Closing down places to vote. You know, one of the things that they know is a lot of black folks like to go vote or register to vote at the church on Sunday. So what did they do? They closed down all the voting places in some of these states on Sundays. And these voter ID laws, you might think, well, people should have, that's not a bad thing to ask somebody to have an ID before they vote. Yeah, but if you're old, you're in college maybe, and you're from another state, all of the inconvenience of those kind of people, blacks, getting IDs can prevent a lot of them, or at least enough of them, from being able to vote to give the victory to the Republican conservative. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing. And they did it, they were able to do it immediately after Shelby County versus Holder, that case, that big case. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court said to Congress, after they gutted that case, they said to Congress, fix what we found wrong in the Voting Rights Act. So after a few years, Congress finally, the House, not all of Congress, but the House, they fixed it. And then just the House fixed it, and then they gave it to the Senate, and guess what happened? Okay? The House had enough votes to pass it, then they gave it to the Senate, guess what happened? And by the way, every Republican in the House voted against it. But they didn't have enough to defeat it. Every Republican in the House voted against fixing the Voting Rights Act. Why? Because they don't want us voting. And these are the people you're voting? This is the crowd of people you're considering voting for? Really? Come on now. They think we're idiots. They think we're stupid. They playing us for cheap. See, Trump give candy to folks at that speech, scholarship to this one, this and that, expecting us to now run out and say, Trump ain't that bad, people got jobs, and look at what he did for that girl, and look what he did for that Tuskegee. I'm not begrudging any of these people. In other words, I'm not begrudging the young girl. I'm not begrudging that Tuskegee. He's a hero in my opinion. Okay? And the brother who got out of prison and used the Opportunity Zone funds to start a business, a success, that's great. But it's these policies and these agencies in the Trump administration that are doing 100 times more damage than the little stuff he's giving to folks. There's a preacher in Ohio, a black preacher, who reportedly was literally handing out money to black folks to go vote for Trump, Isn't that something? Literally handing out money. I later wrote a book, Mary Frances Berry. The name of the book was $5 and a pork chop sandwich. Look it up on Amazon, $5 and a pork chop sandwich. And what she wrote about in that book was how whites in Louisiana would give black folks $5 in a pork chop sandwich to vote for them. See, white people have been playing these games with us for a long time. And we've been falling for the okie doke for a long, long time. Okay? So this, buying my vote for $5 in a pork chop sandwich is insulting. Our ancestors gave their lives so that we could vote for people who would represent us the right way, and we gonna trade our votes because somebody is playing games and giving this one and that one something, and knowing all the time that their policies are hurting our community. We got to stop falling for the okie doke. Racial gerrymandering. So that's voter suppression, all the stuff they're doing to prevent folks from voting. And then there's racial gerrymandering. And what that simply means is the legislators in a lot of these states, southern states especially, they will draw voting districts that pack the black people all in there together, so that the black folks will not be in these white districts, okay, interfering with who the white people want to want in office. So they just pack all the black folks in certain districts, okay? That's what's racial gerrymandering. That's what's called racial gerrymandering, all right? One of the famous cases happened in North Carolina. I remember some years ago, they drew the white Republicans who control a lot of these legislatures. That's why you got to vote, by the way, in local elections. You can't just wait till the president every 4 years. You got to vote in the county. You got to vote in the state. You got to vote, on all levels, okay? Because these folks, they don't get tired. They keep working and working and working their agenda, all right? And if we slow down or get tired, they keep pushing their agenda. So there in North Carolina, they created a district that went all the way from Charlotte all the way to eastern North Carolina. It looked like a snake on the map. And the reason they drew it that way was because they found where concentrated numbers of blacks were, and that was the district. They crowded them in so that the blacks, again, would not be able to vote in the white districts so that they could get their folks in. That's racial gerrymandering. And they've been able to do this successfully against us for years. We haven't been paying attention. We haven't been reading. We haven't been researching. We haven't been studying. And they've been doing the okie doke on us. Okay? Now, one of the lawyers who defended racial gerrymandering was the very person that Trump picked to be high up in the Justice Department. One of these men who, his name is John Gore. He is one of the biggest defenders of laws to weaken the voting strength of African Americans. That's who Trump picked to be high up in the Justice Department over the Civil Rights Division. Now, typically, the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department was there to protect minorities. And a lot of it was to protect African Americans. Okay? Under a lot of these administrations. But not Trump's. Trump's packing the Justice Department with Bill Barr. Okay? Who cares nothing about black folk. And then a whole bunch of folk under Bill Barr who has that same mindset. So while Trump comes out here and look at all the jobs I gave you. Look at all the good stuff I'm giving you. Look at all that. And then he'll parade his black cronies out, bring them out, and they be out there, pumping it up for Trump. But none of them are telling us about the policies that Trump promotes. That's why I'm doing this tonight. I want you to know his policies. And I'm scratching the surface. Okay? Let's talk about all these federal judges that he has put on the bench. He bragged about that at the State of the Union address. In the State of the Union, he bragged about that. All the federal judges. And he's right. He's done a lot. Trump has named 1 and 4 federal appeals court judges since he's been in office. Him and Mitch McConnell. Because the Senate has to approve whoever he nominates. And because they control the Senate, and by the way, we need to do whatever we need to do voting wise, not only to try to get Trump out of office, but to try and flip the Senate. Now, let me say this. I need to say this. I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I am a believer. I'm a Christian. Okay? I tell people this. I'm a Christian first. I'm a black man second. And I'm an American third. In that order. Okay? But I am not a Democrat. I just don't like Donald Trump and this racist white supremacist crowd of people that he has in the government. Because you've heard me say, if not, you hear me say it for the first time tonight. When I look at the Word of God, I see a God who's about righteousness and justice. Righteousness and justice. So the same God who's against abortion and who's for traditional marriage is also against white supremacy and racial injustice and oppressing the poor. He's against that just as much. And what we've done, unfortunately, a lot of us black Christians, is we have embraced the white evangelical approach to serving God. And they don't talk nothing about justice. They don't mention that. They don't say anything about justice as if it's not even in the Bible. Okay? For obvious reasons. And not all white folks are bad. I always tell folks they're without white folks we would not. It was white folks who fought really against slavery. There were white folks who fought against Jim Crow. During that Charlottesville, Virginia debacle, there were white people fighting those Nazis. So don't misunderstand me here. There are a lot of white folks who are freedom, justice loving people just like we are. So this is not all white people. This is white society that I'm talking about. And for right now, it is controlled by Trump and his crowd. Okay? But these federal judges, the same ones that will, try to get rid of abortion, are the same ones who are going to try to get rid of all the civil rights, all the voting rights, all the Fair Housing Acts, laws, all of that. The same people. 70% of Trump's judicial appointments are deeply conservative white men. Okay? Very few blacks, very few Hispanics, very few Asians. Kristen Lucius, Executive Vice President for Policy at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, says, quote, "It is stunning that in 2.5 years he hasn't nominated a single African American or single Latino to the appellate courts." And when we talk about, when we talk about the federal appellate courts, we're talking about the courts that pretty much set the law in this country. Because when courts are appealed from the lower federal courts, they go to the appellate courts, and whatever the appellate courts say in a lot of instances becomes the law because the U.S. Supreme Court does not take a bunch of cases every year. They don't take a lot of cases. They have original jurisdiction on just a few types of cases. The other cases have to be appealed to them, and they do not take a lot of cases per year. So a lot of what the appellate courts say becomes the law. And Trump is packing those courts with deeply conservative white males, okay, who will, if they get their hands on the laws that have been put in place to just give us an equal fighting chance in this society, they will gut them. Okay? I'm as offended by that as I am about abortion. I don't think that in order to resist abortion, I got to embrace white supremacy. That doesn't make sense to me as an African American. All right, I'm coming to a close. I'm not finished, but I know we got to go. HUD, real quickly. HUD. You know who's over HUD? Ben Carson. Ben Carson, black man. He's over HUD. And guess what Mr. Carson is doing? Mr. Carson is busy. Dr. Carson, Secretary Carson, is busy gutting the Fair Housing Act. Yes, he is. Trump put him there and has kept him there because he is trying to gut a law that probably benefited his mother when she was a single mother with 2 sons. Now Mr. Carson is trying to get rid of that law, trying to gut it. Explain that. Okay? So that's all I say about HUD. It's a mess. The EPA. African American communities tend to be the dumping ground for all of the waste materials in a city. Ever notice that the dumping places are typically in the black community? That's called environmental racism. And the EPA has policies to try and prevent that. Good example, we don't have to talk long before when we talk about environmental racism and so forth, we immediately think about Flint, Michigan. And then I heard some same things happening in Baltimore, probably all over the country. Okay? Because of the environmental racism that the EPA should be doing a better job at protecting us. But guess what? The Trump administration has deregulated, has repealed a lot of regulations to stem the flow of environmental racism. Okay? One of which is the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act. Trump has been fighting that, him and his agency. And so now as a result of them being able to successfully dismantle this law, landowners are able now to just pour all kinds of pollutants, dump all kinds of pollutants on the ground and in the water. Okay? And that water we know seeps under the ground and then it ends up in all of our refrigerators. Okay? Especially in black communities. Okay? These wealthy, middle-class, white communities, you don't see dumps in their communities. They put them in ours. And the EPA is gutting all the regulations to keep that mess out of our communities. That's what Trump meant when he said your neighborhoods are no good. That's what he was saying. And some of us are seriously considering giving him 4 more years to do more damage to us. I don't understand. Well, I do understand. Lastly, So you see how I approached this. I went through the agencies that make up his administration. I didn't go through all of them, just some of them. The last one is Health and Human Services. Okay? And I just want to show you this court case. All right? This court case, and it's right here right here in Fort Worth. This court case where about 17, 18 different attorneys general of states sued the government to gut what we call Obamacare. Okay? This case is currently in the courts. All right? And Obamacare has its issues, but it doesn't need to be repealed. It needs to be fixed because a lot of people get health care through Obamacare. Okay? But they're trying to gut it. Now, do you remember the State of the Union address? Trump said that one of the biggest lies, he said that his administration is fighting to protect the provision of Obamacare that stops insurance companies from denying folks coverage if they have pre-existing conditions. You remember Trump said that he was committed to protecting, against pre-existing conditions, denial for pre-existing. The man lied. He just flat out lied. Okay? Here's the court case right here. Right here. What they're trying to do is they're trying to completely destroy the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. They're trying to completely destroy it. They've been in court for years trying to destroy it, and Trump brought new vigor to that fight. And if they're successful, guess what goes away? Protections against denials for pre-existing conditions. Trump's Department of Justice, let me explain this. These attorneys general of these states sued the federal government. They sued the United States. Here's the defendant. United States of America. They sued the United States of America. All these attorneys generals of these states sued the United States of America to get rid of Obamacare. Right? So if they sued the United States of America, guess who handles the lawsuit when you sue the federal government? Oftentimes it's the Attorney General. But in this instance, the Attorney General refuses to defend Obamacare. Trump didn't say that the other night, did he? Bill Barr and his lawyers are refusing to defend the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that provides insurance for a lot of people, including a lot of white people. Some of the same ones who are out here fighting for Trump. He's lying to them too, by the way. Okay? He's lying to them also. So when he said that his administration is fighting to protect folks that have pre-existing conditions, he flat out lied. They are working overtime to gut Obamacare. In fact, not gut it. It's already, they've kind of if it wasn't for Chief Justice John Roberts a couple years ago, it would have been gutted then. But they came back and they're still fighting it. And if they get their way, it's done. And folks with pre-existing conditions will be in trouble when it comes to insurance, despite Trump's lies. He lied about that. He lied about so many other things. Okay? When he talks about criminal justice reform, you remember the policies that he has in place at the Department of Justice, where they, in the federal prison system, in the federal criminal justice system, they charge folk with the most serious offense, not the least serious, and they argue for the most serious punishments, even mandatory minimums. So you remember all that. Remember what he's done at the Department of Education, gutting guidelines to try and protect our young boys from getting kicked out of school disproportionately. Okay? Remember all of this. Remember how that tax cut is benefiting his rich buddies, but is added will add a couple $1 trillion to the debt, and will hurt African Americans more so because many African Americans are already on the fringes, the margins of our economy. Okay? When you hear him talk about all the jobs he created, just remember those jobs were primarily created under Obama. Okay? So, look at his policies. His record first, his 40-year, 50-year record of white supremacy. And then look at his white supremacy current policies. And you'll see this man for who he really is. All right? I hope you got something. Thank you for being with me tonight. Okay? God bless all of you. All of you. All of you. Bye-bye.